Good morning, everyone. Jamie here from LinkedIn. I can see a lot of you are joining on time, so thank you so much. We'll be recording the session today, so if you need to drop off at any point or you'd like to share this with your colleagues after the session, your relationship manager, your account executive will share this with you as well. So we will probably give it 60 seconds or so for people to log in and join, and we have 2 or 3 very quick slides to set the scene today, but the majority of the session will be my colleague Lauren walking us through a demonstration of LSI. We would love to answer your questions as well. So as the demo progresses, I'll be managing the Q&A, so feel free to go into the chat and you can ask a question. If you'd like to see something and we can get to that, we'd absolutely love to do that. If you want to just go into Q&A and ask a question, and we'll answer that as we go. There is time at the end for Q&A anyway, so we will love to answer as many questions as we can. If we can't answer them all, we will make sure we loop back and we get your relationship manager, your account executive to reach out and answer those questions directly. So we seem to have good attendance so far, lots of people joining. I'll give it another maybe 15 or 20 seconds and then we can get going. Okay, great. Lauren, let's rock and roll. So let me roll through a couple of slides here to kick off. First things first, let's just introduce you to ourselves. So Lauren Cohen, you might introduce yourself. Probably a great
absolutely. Hi, everyone. As Jamie mentioned, I'm Lauren. I am a solutions consultant here at LinkedIn. And both Jamie and I focus specifically on LinkedIn sales insights. And I'm based out of the London office.
Excellent. And yeah, they're partner in crime, Jamie Barbour here. I'm based in Dublin, folks. So again, we're both focusing on the LSI product, though a lot of scope around a lot of our clients already have Sales Navigator, and they so we have an understanding of that side of the conversation as well. And that kind of brings us into what we want to cover today. So today we will show you LSI. But before we go into the demo, we want to make sure everyone on the call has a clear understanding of where it fits into the picture with LinkedIn. So typically we're talking to our clients that either have Sales Navigator or they have some sort of relationship with LinkedIn. And when it comes to kind of go to market, Sales Insights and Sales Navigator, the two tools that you will use. You use them in different parts of the kind of sales cycle. But what we want to do is kind of connect these together. So we want your Sales Insights to help your Sales Navigator and vice versa, Sales Nav to feed information back to Sales Insights so that we can more effectively plan. But we also want to connect to your other systems. So on screen here, you'll see CRM. There's just one thing that we can connect with. It might be marketing automation. It might be external data you want to bring in, or it might be Sales Insights information you want to send somewhere else. And really the idea behind all of this is start to build that single source of truth of data for yourselves so you can do planning, you can do selling, marketing more effective, and really that entire organizational go-to-market, connecting it together, giving you reliable, trustworthy first-party data from the LinkedIn network to support that. Now, from the perspective of the two types of people that we really address with this LSI product, it's really sales and marketing and the people that support them. So if we think about the marketing continuum of creating awareness, consideration, conversion, and how marketers work hand in hand with salespeople, you can see here how we map out insights, navigator, marketing solutions across that timeline, if you will. And what we want to make sure everyone on the call today, you feel you have a little skin in the game if you're from sales, if you're from marketing, but also if you're anyone that has something to do with data, planning, CRM, operations. All of these kind of things we'll discuss today will address certain aspects of how you are supporting the go-to-market in your organization. So without further ado, then I am going to hand over to Lauren. Lauren's going to walk us through a demonstration of LSI. I'll man the chat. So for everyone that's just joined in the last couple of minutes, maybe you missed the start, please do ask questions through the chat or the Q&A. I will man those. And I might kind of pepper Lauren with some questions from yourselves as we go through the demonstration. So I'll stop sharing, Lauren, and you can fire up your screen and we'll go from there.
Perfect. All right. So before we actually kind of like really dig into things, Jamie, I feel like you already did a great job of this, but I did just want to kind of outline for folks. LSI at its core is a business intelligence tool, and it really sits on the back of LinkedIn's data. So what we're talking about is pulling in information from almost 800 million members and over 57 million companies. And all of that data gets updated every day by both those companies and by those members. And LSI is also refreshing kind of live to make sure that what we're sharing with you guys is also kind of the most dynamic and up-to-date data that's out there. So welcome to LSI. As you guys can see on my screen here, you're kind of on the homepage of the platform. We effectively have two different buttons or ways to get at the data or reporting that exists within LSI. So on the left here, you've got this create report button that's focused on identifying new accounts in white space. Now, the reason for that is because the source of the data that we're pulling in is all of those companies on LinkedIn. So just about 57 million. Now, on the right-hand side, what we've got here is another way to get at that data and reporting, but this is actually focused on a constrained set of data. So what we've got the ability to do here is to integrate with a CRM. And in today's world, that means integrating with either Salesforce or Dynamics. So you can pull in your known universe of accounts. Alternatively, you can upload a list of accounts or a subset of what you're maybe focused on or working with here. And the way that you would do that is via a CSV file. So for the purposes of today, what I've actually done is kind of pre-built part of a report, and we're going to go into that together and update some things in real time. So as you can see here, I've titled this report. We're actually focused on white space, and I wanted to look at high potential companies for me here. The first thing that I really want to call your attention to is that the source is all of the companies that are on LinkedIn. So again, that's kind of one of the ways that we know that this is really focused on white space. We've got a couple of different filters here, and these are really designed to help you winnow down the list so that you're focused on the accounts that matter most to you. And with 57 million, we do need a way to kind of narrow that pool of accounts down. So I actually haven't selected a location headquarter here. The thing that I really wanted to focus on today was companies of a particular size. So I want companies with 100 employees or more. And I wanted to focus on companies that are growing a lot quickly. So I've selected companies that are growing by 30% or more. To constrain this list just a little bit more, because Jamie and I are both based in Europe, I'm going to change the headquarter location here to EMEA. Now, what you can see is that this list was previously about 18,000 companies. And now, as soon as I've applied that EMEA filter on the bottom, you can see that the list of companies has updated to just under 5,000. So I'll go ahead and click apply, and then we can actually take a look at the data that's in the table. So first things first, what we've got here is essentially a thumbnail view of the companies that are listed on the left-hand side here. Then we've got information about the opportunity size, or I like to think of it as the health of the opportunity. So we're sharing with you that global employee headcount and the growth trend over the course of the last 12 months. So you've got a really strong sense for effectively how a company has been growing and how they've been investing in themselves. Then on the right-hand side over here, we've got a metric around the jobs that are posted today. I know that a lot of companies typically rely on revenue. What we found over the course of the last 18 months in particular is that not only is revenue kind of a lagging indicator and something that at best is reported on 4 times a year, but it's already stale the second it's in your hands. So one of the things that we really found helpful was using jobs posted as a way to look at the future state of a company, or again, kind of how they're investing in themselves and planning for the future. So we've got another kind of bucket of information on the right-hand side here. And what we're looking at is sales connectivity. So that's kind of the aggregate number of connections that your Sales Navigator users have to a particular company. The company's on the left-hand side. I'm going to expand this view just so that we can get a bit more granular. So now what we're able to see is not only that aggregate number of connections, but I can also see what my sales nav users are up to. So I can see how many employees they've actually researched, how many they've contacted, and how many people have actually engaged with them or accepted that outreach. Jamie, I figured I might pause there. This is typically where we start to get questions. Has anybody written in?
Yeah, so it'd be great just to clarify what we mean by a record, an account, a company,
Sure.
and maybe pick one that we can name here to illustrate that.
Yeah, absolutely. So if we look at, let's say, the Department for Education, what we're doing is we're viewing that as a particular company or account. And when we talk about records, what we're really talking about is accounts or companies. And again, you can get kind of that thumbnail view here. And actually within the Department for Education, we're also providing company hierarchy info. So if I click on that, you can see that the Department for Education is actually part of a kind of parent-child relationship with the UK Civil Service. Great. So I want to get a little bit more granular with you guys. And the way that we can do that is by adding on persona information. So LinkedIn has the ability to isolate a group of people within a company. So that could be a function, a set of job titles, or even just seniority. And for today's example, what I've done is I've pre-built some personas. Let's go ahead and take a look at HR decision makers and IT decision makers. So let's imagine that those are the groups that we're potentially either selling into, or those are the end users that we like to help with our product. So you can see here, I've got HR decision makers. For this particular example, I've selected the function of human resources, and I've isolated people who have a director, vice president, or C-suite title. And you can see for IT decision makers, I've done the same thing here. That being said, of course, we do have the ability to work specifically off of job titles. So again, now that I've applied these personas, what we can see is that the list has updated. Not only has it gotten more granular as far as the actual companies that we're pulling in, but the information that we're looking at in the table is also more granular. So we're still providing that global employee headcount and growth trend, but we're also now isolating out what's going on within these specific personas. So what we can see, the yellow box up here is really corresponding back to those HR decision makers, and the gray box is really corresponding back to IT decision makers. And let's go ahead and look at Capgemini engineering here. What we can see is that both HR decision makers and IT decision makers have grown significantly over the course of the last 12 months. The job posted information is now specific to these personas, as is the connectivity information. So you can really start to get specific and see how that sales engine is ticking over with not only the companies that matter most, but within the kind of job titles and functions that matter most. Okay. So, Jamie, it looks like we might have a question.
We do. So we might just clarify what we mean on the report by connectivity.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So one of the great things about this tool, if you hover over any of the kind of column headers, it does provide a description for you. But when we say connectivity, what we're doing is we're actually looking at the kind of number of aggregate connections that are or that exist between at least one of your Sales Navigator users and the company on the left-hand side. In this instance, because we've gone down to the persona level, we're actually looking at the connections that exist between one of your Sales Nav users and the selected persona. And one other quick thing to note, this does include Team Link. So even if people within your organization don't have Sales Navigator licenses, we are accessing the connections of anybody who is sharing connections via Team Link. Okay. A couple of other quick things that I wanted to show you guys, and then we can dive right back into Q&A. So because I've selected EMEA as my headquarters here, these companies could be based anywhere. And I want to get a little bit more specific and understand where the companies are headquartered. So by clicking on location, what I can see is that the companies are actually now organized by where they're headquartered. So I can see that I've got the most companies headquartered in the UK today, then France, Germany, and Spain. I also have the ability to click into each one of these territories and view it by city. So I've selected the UK, and you can see, perhaps not surprisingly, that most of these companies are actually headquartered in London. Now, there is one other interesting thing here. For many companies, particularly as they start to grow, the kind of location of the decision maker is actually more important than where the company is headquartered. So we've provided an alternative view for you here. And the way that we do that is by flipping over to persona location. So now what we can see here is that despite the fact that these companies are actually headquartered in EMEA, we can see that the United States has a lot of the decision makers that are actually really important to us. So as you start to think about aligning your sales resources to the companies that you're focused on, dividing territories up potentially by where decision makers sit is something we're seeing more and more. So I'm going to go back to the company view here. And I wanted to talk about a couple of the pre-baked insights that exist within LSI. So first, we've got top picks. And what this is essentially looking at is the kind of top companies that have the most people that match the personas that we've selected and have the highest level of connectivity with the personas that we've highlighted here. So we're looking both at relationship strength and the number of decision makers that matter to us. Then when we get into big bets, this is where I think things actually start to get really interesting. I'm going to argue that big bets is a little bit of a misnomer, and potentially this should be called missed opportunities. Now, the reason for that is what we're looking at is, again, a list of companies that have lots of people who match the personas that we've selected, but they actually have no connectivity with our sales team. So these companies are ripe with opportunity and nobody's going after them. I also think this list and untapped growth, which we'll get to in just a second, are particularly wonderful lists as we start to think about bringing sales and marketing closer together. You could have a marketing team start sending campaigns out or messaging to these companies first before having the sales team start prospecting within those companies. Then for untapped growth, again, what we've got here is a list of the fastest growing companies that have no relationship between the selected persona or group of decision makers that matter to you and your sales team. So another great list of companies to kind of keep an eye on, again, one that marketing might want to pursue because they're growing so fast and have people that really do fit the bill as far as opportunity goes, but no one's pursuing them yet. Jamie, I'm going to pause there again and just see if we've got any questions.
Yeah, so we had a great question around, really narrowing down on similar companies to known ones in the CRM. And actually, that's a very straightforward thing to do. We can look at our sources on the top left here and actually exclude our CRM. So when we run a report now, we're looking at all companies on LinkedIn, excluding the known companies. So a true white space report. But then the other thing we can do is if we've reviewed our CRM accounts and we know the companies, industries, locations, sizing, etc., we can actually start to replicate lookalike accounts. And maybe Lauren, industry is something that you could kind of just spend a little bit of time of explaining.
Absolutely. So as far as industry goes, what we've got here is essentially 26 different sectors with sub-industries beneath them. So what you can see here within agriculture, we've got dairy, farming, fishery, horticulture, and ranching. I'm sure everybody's most popular selection. But you can see if we were to click into manufacturing, it does get quite a bit more granular here. And we are actually updating our industry taxonomy over the course of the next few weeks. it will get quite a bit more granular. So we are kind of shifting to an even more refined model. Jamie, anything else you wanted me to add on the industry side of things?
Nope, really clear.
Okay, great. So the next thing that I wanted to do with you all was talk about how we actually action this information. And a big part of that is the ability to take it out of the tool itself. So what I want to do first here is show you how I would send this list of accounts to, let's say, a salesperson in Sales Navigator. And I want you all to bear with me for a second. So we're going to look at a couple of different things. When I click on the export button here on the right, I've got a few different options. You can see that I can take this information out via a CSV file. So once that CSV file is in my hands, it's mine to manipulate and report on in whatever ways I feel most comfortable. I can export information into my CRM, and you saw before how I was integrating the two. And then I can also send a list of accounts directly to a salesperson or user in Sales Navigator. That's the first thing that I want to do with you guys. And while that list is actually making its way over to my Sales Navigator account, I figured that we could pop into Salesforce and take a look at the information that comes into the tool. So first things first, I'm going to go ahead and send this list to myself, so you guys can see that round trip journey. And while that list is making its way over to my Sales Nav account, let's pop into Salesforce here. So I want you guys to imagine for a second that this is my Salesforce environment. This one's just a dummy one for today. It does explain why it's a little bit sparse, but this is the account information that would typically exist within Salesforce. So this is really the account object. And let's imagine that this was what you all had actually put in your Salesforce. What you can see on the right-hand side here is that LinkedIn Sales Insights is actually injecting a custom object. And we're reporting on the company name, the URL, the headquarter location. We're giving you access to all of that really granular employee headcount and growth information. We're also providing industry information. And you can see on the bottom here that I've opted to write back two different personas. So all of the information that the LSI custom object is pulling in is updated and refreshed every 24 hours. The other thing that I want to call out is that, as you can see here, we're not actually overwriting any of the information that exists in the account object. So you've got the opportunity to kind of decide which source you value most. We don't want to be responsible for kind of editing or overwriting, again, anything that already exists in your CRM that you're using today. There's one other thing that I wanted to call out here about the information that LSI is inserting into Salesforce. And that's that all of these fields are actually reportable. So if you have existing reports in Salesforce today, and you wanted to swap out one of the fields for one of the ones that's coming in from LSI, you have the ability to do that. Jamie, I'm going to pause again there. I feel like Salesforce always gets a couple of hands up in the air.
Not yet, unless people are kind of frantically typing their questions. Actually, we do have one. Are personas also reportable? I'll let you answer that.
Yeah.
I have a comment on CRM.
Okay. Yeah, the persona information is also reportable. So you can definitely include that in the reporting that you've got for Salesforce. Jamie, anything else you wanted to add?
Excellent. No, just for everyone's information. So Sales Insights, out of the box, we have a direct integration with Salesforce. We also have direct integration with Microsoft Dynamics 365. And the look and feel is pretty much what you see here on the screen in both those tools. For other CRMs, maybe HubSpots, Pipedrives, SAPs, etc., we can get this same data into your CRM. It would just simply be an additional step where you export it from LSI and then you import it into your CRM in whatever way that you do that. So it's one extra step, but absolutely achievable.
Thanks for clarifying, Jamie. Super helpful. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and switch views on you all now, and I want to take you into Sales Navigator to show you the way that that list kind of manifests in this tool. So you can see here that I'm on my home page. I'm going over to account lists. And you can see that that list of top pick accounts, all 103 of them, have made their way over to my sales nav. So now I've got all of those accounts. They're organized in one place. And as you can see here, I've got the ability to click in and start finding leads directly. So I think that pretty much wraps it up. Jamie, have I missed anything?
No, all super, super clear.
Okay.
So I think what we can do now is we can kind of move to a more Q&A style.
Perfect.
And typically, I think people will kind of opt for one of two things. They'll either ask some questions now on the chat that we've answered a few, or do feel free to reach back out to your relationship manager, your account executive, and you can follow up. Myself and Lauren would love to bring anyone and your colleagues through this in a more contextual basis around your company. So while we've shown a very generic demonstration today of LSI, the most important thing here is to be able to understand, how we can help you drive value in your organization. So we can have that conversation about how we would address your company specifically, with your go-to-market, and create a more bespoke demonstration as well. So if that's something that you'd like to arrange for, absolutely reach out to your relationship manager, reach out to your account executive, and we can follow up on that as well. So I don't see any more questions, Lauren. Hopefully, I know you've been really clear. Hopefully I've been really clear as well. So I'll give it a couple more seconds, about 30 seconds, to see if any other questions come in. And otherwise, what we can do is give people some time back. So we do have a question. So we have a question: is there any similar functionality with Sales Nav for individual exports to Salesforce? So just simply answering based on how I understand the question, and Dan, thank you for the question. If we are in Sales Nav, exporting to Salesforce, what that would look like would be at an individual level. So you can create a person within Salesforce as a lead or contact. So that will be kind of exporting, if you will. Now, you do need to make sure that you meet the GDPR criteria and threshold of how we create someone, because once you put them in your CRM, then you're responsible for that because it's in your data store. But the nice thing about Sales Navigator is we can make sure we engage in many different levels with that person through InMail, connecting, messages, smart links, so that we get them to the point where they say, yep, I want to engage with you. And then you can create them from Sales Nav directly, very, very easily with a couple of clicks. So hopefully that answered the question. But if not, feel free to come back to your relationship manager, account executive. We can deep dive on that. We have another question then. Is it possible to use these account lists for targeting in LinkedIn Campaign Manager? And that's a funny question, only because myself and Lauren said, will we show that in today's session? The answer is simply yes. We're not going to show it, but Lauren, you're the expert here. Maybe you want to talk about how that functionality will work.
Yeah, absolutely. So what you would effectively do is export one of those lists to a CSV file. Once you've done that, you can go right into Campaign Manager. When you go into the audience building portion of the tool, there is something under the kind of audience builder that says list upload. You then have the option to either upload a company list or a contact list. And you can go ahead and select company list and click upload. It's really pretty simple.
Great. I think that goes back to we know we're addressing today more than just salespeople. Sales Insight is what it's called, but we do see marketers, operations people, data science, CRM using this tool, and marketing solutions. Campaign Manager is one of those places that we see some of the LSI data going, and specifically it's account data. So if you're doing brand activation, early stage, if you're doing account-based marketing, we can get those lists of accounts directly across to Campaign Manager. So really great question. So the last question that I see here, Lauren, is can you upload a company list into LSI rather than connecting to a CRM?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that I was showing at the very beginning of the demo was that ability to create a report using a constrained set of data. So one of the options is to upload a list of accounts via a CSV file. So we do match on a couple of different facets, but essentially, as long as you've got the account name, and I highly recommend putting the URL in there as well, we can work off a specific list of accounts.
Excellent. So I think that covers off all the questions. So really all that leaves us to do then is just to say thank you to everyone for joining today, and really just make clear, if you'd like more information, if you want to do more of a deep dive on your go-to-market and how LSI and Sales Navigator can help you address that, please do feel free to reach out to your relationship manager or to your account executive, and they'll be able to set up time with you to discuss that and bring myself and Lauren in for a more customized demonstration. If you do not know who that person is, then simply reach out to myself and Lauren on LinkedIn, or you can go on to business.linkedin.com and you can type in to receive contact. So thank you very much for everyone for joining today. We had a pretty solid number of people all the way through. So hopefully that means we've done a good job. But if there is anything that you'd like to hear from us around LSI, please do reach out, and we'll have a series of these webinars. They are recorded. Great last question. They're recorded, and we will share that with everyone that's been on the call today as well. So have a great day, everyone. Thank you for joining, and it was a pleasure to have you on our session. Bye-bye.